So, I'm not even combed and fully anything yet. I'm dressed, and that's about it this morning. It has been a crazy night and a crazy morning. As I said on Bobby's channel, it's not the brightest lights in the harbor. Um, it does sound like an episode for the Pork family, does it not? I'm starting to call him Wilber, like everybody else. You remember Wilber the pig in Charlotte's Web? Sadly, I don't think anybody is going to put up a spider web above his head that says terrific or humble. So that's what we're dealing with this morning. And it does kind of all meet together. It's kind of funny because I just had a girlfriend of mine that was updating me about happenings in the Steven Anderson world, which is another weird fundamentalist world. Hey, everybody. Hey, Java Man, Pink, Nana, Jan, Michelle. I guess it would make Charlotte on the web his overlord. Yes, Charlotte, you should do that. You should be his overlord. Last night, apparently, he got some kind of slap on the wrist for 2 weeks from YouTube. He got a suspension for 2 weeks, and they took some of his videos down for bullying. And Twitter removed his account entirely. So, what's a hog to do? Wilber started a new channel, which violates all of YouTube's rules, and it won't work out well for him. It didn't work out well for Steven Anderson, which is what I was talking to my girlfriend about. Steven Anderson's, not his followers, and not even Steven. We were talking about somebody that keeps track of Steven Anderson. But Steven Anderson also got banned from YouTube and started a second channel, and they keep just banning him every time. He keeps doing it over and over and over and over again. He starts a new channel, and within a couple of days, they hit that ban button. So I'm predicting a removal from YouTube. And then at that point, I'm sure he'll move on to the Mrs. And they'll ban her. Then he'll start a third, fourth, fifth channel. It'll be ban, ban, ban. And the hog will be gone. I hate to see anybody canceled, but when it's somebody that their sole purpose on YouTube is to fight with people and dox people, that's not a good look for anybody. That went down too. His second channel's down. Ooh, hoo. Yeah, smash the like button, subscribe. Everything I'm saying is my own opinion. It's not anybody else's. I'm not stating this fact. I'm going to say, like Renell, do your homework. The things that I'm talking about, you could easily research them online and make your own decisions. Also, don't bully anybody, anything. Don't bully the pig. Don't bully Wilber. Oh, so yeah, we were talking about Steven Anderson, one of the people that watches him. Oh, and not the poor fellow that Todd Ferguson, that was my buddy, that got killed and nobody knows how, and they decided it was a natural death from a hole in the top of his head when he fell down in an alleyway a long way from his home. Cleveland, what the hell? I mean, not Cleveland, Columbus. I get my crazy Ohio bad police towns mixed up sometimes. Well, Todd had kind of a partner in Robert Tuttle. Robert Tuttle runs the Reason Files. And this whole thing has been like a storyline out of the Righteous Gemstones. So it's good that I'm talking about all this crap today. He went on the Mrs. channel first last night after his channel went down. This morning she's saying, I was just third party streaming. She could get in real trouble for that. So anyway, Todd Ferguson's partner was this guy named Robert Tuttle. And I like Robert. I've talked to Robert a few times. He used to post at NLQ occasionally. Robert keeps up with the crazy doings of Pastor Steven Anderson of the new IFB. He's the Pope of it. There's been all kinds of infighting and crazy things that have happened. Todd Ferguson died. He ran Reason Files 1. Robert runs Reason Files. I'm sorry. Todd ran Reason Files 2. Robert runs 1. Well, Robert is rather conservative in his religious views. And he was part of a church that doesn't believe in vaccines or masking or any of that. Robert got COVID and he was hospitalized and damn near died. And I hate to see that for anybody. I'm just going to come out and say it. In a world where we have things like vaccines and masks and helping, I hate to see anybody taken down by this evil thing. Versus admitting he was doxing on her channel. Yes. Anderson is beyond anti-gay. Anderson has called for the execution of gay people by the American government. He has called for it big time. He believes in that. He preaches it. Java, sadly, a lot of these churches, these very conservative churches, have taken that hardline stance, and I don't understand it. I don't understand science denial. I'm just going to throw that out there. I will say this, at least the Catholic Church, the Episcopal Church, the Methodist Church believe in science and scientific thought and all of that. So take what you will from that. I just don't believe in, not believing in science. I'm just going to throw that right out there. And as much as I hate to say it, Without a Box of Kleenex is pro-vaccine. That was one of the good things about her. She is pro-vaccine. If you go back to the plagues of Egypt and replace the blood of a lamb with a vaccine, you arrive at present day. Yes, no, he was not International House of Prayer. That was Mike Bickle. That's a totally different guy and totally different thing, believe it or not. So Mike Bickle and International House of Prayer, IHOP, that was in St. Louis. They have nothing to do with each other, thank God. I mean, IHOP is bad enough, but Anderson, how bad is Anderson? Anderson is on the like a judicial watch list. He's on Southern Poverty Law Center's list of cults, CULTs. There's a lot of things like that he is on. He is on the radar. He told his followers to kill Obama. One of them showed up at a Obama rally armed. So we're talking beyond regular conservative like Robert Tuttle, and we're talking out there in wacky land. Out there in wacky land. He's out there. He's way out there. And some of what he believes is toxic. But it's interesting because in the Steven Anderson new IFB, there's been a lot of fights for control. There's been pastors falling by the wayside who have involved themselves with ladies of the night and drugs. And others are making allegations of financial chicanery going on. There's just all kinds of stuff going on with that group. KJ occasionally gets something right. Exactly. She does sometimes. Maybe it's to throw us off. I might have an extra bad signal. If you cannot see me or hear me, let me know and I will go out and come back in. I can do that. Sometimes that helps. Let me know whether I'm coming through loud and clear or not, because it's not even showing me that I am having issues. Usually it will show me, it'll say stream connection weak. Oh gosh, what did I get in my hair? So I'm just going to go on. I hope that I'm hoping that I'm fine. So where does all this lead us? This leads us straight back to the Righteous Gemstones in this last episode. Oh my word. The thing that I kept thinking when I was seeing this is how it's all the same kind of weak man signaling that I saw going on in Evangelical Town and in Quipperful that I still see going on to this day. Hey Carolyn. So some of these guys I'm not going to name too many names. Tim Baylys, Doug Wilson. Really practice this whole weak ass masculine thing, this hyper masculinity that is so hyper masculine. You wonder sometimes if they're so far back in the closet they're seeing Narnia. If that's what's going on, you wonder about it. When I used to write about Tim Baylys for No Longer Quivering, he would protest to my editor. He wouldn't protest to me because I'm a mere woman about what I'd said, and the editor would say, "Did you not say those things? She's just quoting you and breaking down, parsing what you've said." So he started fighting with my editor to the point where he got blocked. My editors blocked him, and he tried to jump up above the editor's grade and contact other people, and it didn't go well. Why? Because I was laughing over his hyper masculine flexing that they all do. They do this male virtue signaling about how masculine they are. At one time, I used to have a muscle there, and before that flopped. But hey, so the masculine thing is really one of the things that I think is the weakest, lamest BS ever about all the churches, about a lot of them. Shouldn't say all, because I haven't seen anybody in the Catholic Church do that. But then again, I haven't been watching closely either. Hey, Renee, so these guys are doing this crap, and you're like, why are you even trying to virtue signal what a man is? Now, what made the Righteous Gemstones interesting to me is they started this episode, and warning, spoilers if you haven't seen it. They started this episode with Jesse and Amber, his wife, in the party bus that they had stolen from Jesse's father. They took it and they were riding it around. They stopped at a gas station, and the ninja bikers, as Jesse kept calling them, rolled up and opened fire on the bus and didn't kill them. So Jesse grabs his gun and runs off the bus and starts shooting at them. Amber grabs her gun and runs off the bus, starts shooting at them, and gets one of them, manages to shoot them or knock over their motorcycle or something. What was interesting about that is the rest of the episode was Jesse trying to reassert how masculine he was after everybody heard that Amber was the one that got the shot in. And it's funny because they've shown before that Amber is the master shot, that she practices frequently. She's really good at it. But everyone laughing over Jesse not making the shot, shooting at them and not hitting the side of the barn, and that Amber managed to wing one of the assailants. It was a big thing. So he spent the rest of the it does sound like a rap album. He spent the rest of the episode trying to prove how masculine he was by doing things like he put together his group of men, the same lame little guys that last season helped him with finding out who it was that was blackmailing him. So this time, instead of trying to sneak up on Johnny's seasons with guns, this time they all showed up with slings like King David had to take down Goliath. So they all had slings except for Jesse, who had a big white gun. And they showed up to threaten Junior, the Dixie Mafia guy that runs the wrestling syndicate thing, because Jesse is sure that he is the one behind it. And I thought it was likely too, but there's some things that now make me think it's somebody else. The Star Wars Stormtrooper, yes! He was shooting like that. He was shooting wildly and no bullets were hitting anybody. So he showed up and threatened Junior, and they all had their little slingshots and sling stones, and they're jumping around afterwards. What manly men they are. And at the same time, his brother Kelvin is getting his butt handed to him in pieces by the muscular boys, as his dad calls him, as Eli calls him. And spray and pray. Yes, spray and pray. And it didn't work out well for Jesse. So there's a big showdown with Kelvin's muscle men until finally what happened was the muscle men took over and they put Keith in this little crate, and they had Kelvin with his broken thumbs cleaning the floors and being their slave. So that was another form of ridiculous hyper-masculinism you'll see in these things. They were carrying this concrete cross around and proving how masculine they were and beating themselves in the chest and the whole 9 yards. It was just pretty hysterical. And then you had BJ, who is married now to Judy Gemstone, meeting with Eli Gemstone and having like a meeting of the minds and a shaking of hand. It was funny because he came out looking at his hand. So it was kind of like a good masculine moment there. And then at the very end, crazy things happen. The motorcycle ninja dudes attack Eli in it, and we don't know what happens. It looks pretty dire. But I just could not get over the whole masculine signaling and defining what a man means, whether it's slingshots and guns and threatening people, or it's carrying around a giant concrete cross. That is something that needs to stop at all levels of religion. I gotta say, my husband is he doesn't buy into that. And I cannot tell you how much I appreciate that. He was in the military for some years. He was in military intelligence. He could ace the physical fitness stuff when guys half his age couldn't do it. But I've never seen him do that. Now, that's as far as the masculine hyper signaling. And I saw a little bit of that at my old church, but thankfully there wasn't much, because I would have run away screaming from guys like Doug Wilson and Tim Baylys, and they're silly. And another one is Steven Anderson does it, because he picks up his wife and carries her around to prove how masculine he is. Dude, that's not masculine. That just means you got muscles. Anderson also does goofy things, like he goes these long runs in the desert, barefoot, where there could be 10,000 pieces of glass and nails and God knows whatever, nuclear waste. I don't think he realizes that, the military used to test their crap out there. There's no way I would ever go running barefoot through the deserts. It's just too much chance of injuring yourself. It's just not the way to do it. Now, I don't understand why this is something that has taken over the church. So I have to say, my husband, Mr. Hyper Masculine in his own self, who doesn't do those masculine things, who doesn't try to prove that he's masculine or he's male, he just is. I got to say this. He has done some things that, to me, that were impressive, that I think real men do. I think one of the best examples is one time I saw him sit outside for hours by a storm drain to rescue little kittens that were living down in the storm drain. He has done so many things that the hyper masculinity guys would call weak, and they're not. A man who is secure in his sexuality and knows who he is and knows he's masculine, knows he's powerful, will do these things, will help the weaker, the less fortunate. It's not all about testosterone. It's not to say he doesn't have his masculine moments where he's like, I'm the man, you're the woman. We do have those, but not that many. And he's not on the internet signaling how masculine he is by calling women filthy names or running down other men and women. Because that's one thing I have noticed about the hyper masculine crew is they will put other men down. And I saw examples of that even in this episode of the Righteous Gemstones. I mean, there were times that Jesse was getting on to guys like Chad and Levi. A masculine man should be a kind man. A masculine man is not a guy that uses his masculinity to boss other people around or to cause drama or any of that. A masculine man is a kind man who's helpful to the lesser able than him. I'm just going to say it, not lesser, because nobody is lesser than anybody else. Even Wilber is not lesser. He's just misguided and all of that. So that's my Righteous Gemstones rant. Now on to Without a Box of Kleenex, who may be part masculine. I don't know. She claims to be bisexual. I've never seen any evidence of that. I'm just going to come right out and say it. But that's not my rant about her today. Last night, one of the legal commentators, I think it was Eric Hunley, I think that's who it was looking at the whole issue of people contacting Jessa Duggar Seewald's advertiser for natural deodorant and complaining about her until the sponsorship was dropped. He said that under Minnesota law, that is tortious interference. And then Jessa actually has a pretty good case if she were to sue Without a Box of Kleenex. Now, it's not just her, because Without a Box of Kleenex and her subscribers have done this to Ginger and Jeremy Volo again and again and again and again. They've done this to them for every sponsorship they've gotten, even for like an LA Cronut cupcake sort of place at one point. So many of the Duggar daughters have had sponsorships, and Without a Box of Kleenex and her fans have interfered. So if this is true, this opens a whole new can of worms. And it'll be an interesting can of worms if any of the girls take her up on this and decide to sue. Replay crew, Shyla, when she entered your life, it seemed to be a definite turning point for you. Java Man, it was. It was definitely a turning point for me. And here's the obscene, nasty thing. She wasn't the only person that went to work for Pathos that I helped. She just happened to be the only one that I had to help all the time, that I had to frequently help. There are others that were brought on and introduced to me and said, hey, if you got any questions, you can ask me, you can ask Suzanne, you can ask so-and-so, you can ask blah, blah. And most of them I only maybe heard from once or twice more. And then the rest of them were off like a shot or they dropped like a stone. With her, it was constant. She was constantly PMing me to complain. I mean, constant. And sometimes I would just block her and she'd come back with a new ID. New ID, same name, and then come right back and start talking to me again like it was normal that I blocked her. We never once discussed the fact that I had blocked her. Never once. Yes, uncivil law said that too. So there's been a number of lawyers now that have said that under Minnesota law that they all have a good case. The Duggar sisters just lost their case they had going against local government about the release of the records. I had a feeling they were going to lose it. Yeah, I hear you. I'm that way too, Michelle. So the Duggar daughters had sued various law enforcement agencies to release the information, and I had a feeling they were going to lose. Why? Well, first of all, there's this lovely little thing called the Freedom of Information Act. The Freedom of Information Act, I must have a low signal because it's doing crazy things to my hair. My hair keeps turning like pitch black. And then, so anyway, this Freedom of Information Act, it's a two-edged sword in a lot of ways. It releases information, but if the person is under 18, when these things occurred, what they'll do is they'll redact it out. And that's exactly what happened when In Touch decided to file a Freedom of Information Act. And I'm not surprised they did. It is. And the light is not changing at all in here. The lighting is pretty stable. Well, as stable as it ever gets in Costa Rica. It doesn't always stay stable here, as you can see. So that's what happened in these documents. They redacted out the names of who was affected. They redacted out all the identifying information. But In Touch and others were able to figure out who the victims were based upon the ages. And they're not legally required. Yeah, it's doing that. I don't know why. They aren't legally required to do that, to redact ages. Now, they are like the other identifying information, so I'm not sure why they did in the ages. It was very easy to piece together. And In Touch never exposed who the kids were that were involved beyond Josh. And Josh was named and was over 18. So they didn't expose anything that anyone couldn't, with half a brain, couldn't figure out. Number one. Number two, nobody said the names of the girls. I saw some speculation in like message boards and things, but nobody said for sure, this is so and so, so and so, so and so and so. No one said that. Do you know who exposed the names of the victims? Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar on that Megyn Kelly show. They brought two of the victims on and forced them to talk about what had happened. They exposed who it was, or at least two of the victims. I don't know if they exposed the other two or not. I don't remember. I saw the show. So that pretty much just completely derails being able to claim that the police were the ones that did this, because it was their own damn parents. Sue your parents. And so they lost that. Now they have this big legal bill. So I'm wondering, are we going to see them go after Without a Box of Kleenex? Because certainly enough people are now suggesting that they actually have a case. I wouldn't have thought they'd had a case, but what do I know? I'm not a lawyer. I like what the judge said, that the biggest offenders against the girls are Josh and their own parents. That's exactly right. That's where the fault lies. They need to sue their parents for exposing them. I'd still like to know who sent the letter from the Duggar household. What letter? Okay, you have to let me in on this, Jan, because I'm not sure, unless you're referring to something that Without a Box of Kleenex is claiming that she got. I'm glad that Springdale, Arkansas does not have to pay for what the parents did. Same thing. Did you hear the old podcast she did where she was still doing the smoking nun? She hated the Me Too movement. She said she'd never sue for verbal essay, because it wasn't possible. Yes, I've seen that. I've seen that repeatedly because of, the letter to Oprah. No, I don't know who sent that. I don't have a clue, but I'm going to tell you this. For having been part of the she is Without a Box of Kleenex, who they're referring to. The Oprah letter, I never saw it, but I will say this. At the time that all of this went down, I was still a member until late 2006, early 2017, of my old Quiverful church. And we would get prayer requests from other Quiverful churches. Sometimes you know who it was. We knew that the Duggars were trying to get a television show because they had put out prayer requests through sister churches nationwide about their coming television show and about everything to do with their family. So this was a rumor that pretty much everybody knew. It was a rumor. Some circles closer to the Duggars knew more detail. I did not know any detail. I knew there was some scandal surrounding them that they were trying to squash, but exactly what that was, I don't know. And for Jim Bob to say that this is normal in Quiverful, I'm just going to come out and say this is not normal in Quiverful. when I was attending a Quiverful church, this was not any part of our lifestyle. I don't know anybody whose sons did that to their daughters. And I knew a pile of large families, an absolute pile. If that had been happening or even gossiped about or hinted at, I would have known. We all knew who was beating who. We all knew who was a secret alcoholic. It was pretty obvious to be able to see these things. It didn't take half a brain. It didn't take a crystal ball or a magic 8-ball even. It just took you opening your eyes. So we do need to be more specific about our pronoun game. Yeah, and even if it's typical, it doesn't make it right. I'm just going to throw that out there. It's like I was ranting earlier about all these fundamentalist churches that are telling their people not to wear masks, not to get vaccines, not to stand 6 feet apart. They're saying throw a bird at COVID. COVID doesn't care. COVID laughs at that. So I think that's kind of ridiculous. I think a lot of churches just need to tell their people, hey, do what you will. There's this wonderful thing called free will, but the church is not going to take a position on that, which is really what needs to happen. My lights did dim. What the heck? I must be having electrical problems here. Java Man, there is just no telling how many she will get into this year. And I'm not holding out much hope for the Todd Chrisley one. I talked to Chrisley. I think he's a decent guy. But I think he's after something. I think it's very likely that he's after information about whatever Lindsay told Katie. And I think once he has that information, he has Katie's sworn testimony, that will be just like what happened with the Tati Westbrook thing. He will settle with her. She'll screech and carry on that she won the lawsuit, even though she was the one that folded faster than Superman on Laundry Day. And she'll become even more arrogant. The other thing about all of this with her and her lawsuits and Chrisley's, he said he was going to fund a class action. Here we are months and months later, and I wrote in, and I've yet to hear back from his class action lawsuit lawyers. That's literally not how class action lawsuits work. Been involved in a few for a few different things, like having stock in some place that went under or using a product that was later recalled. It's not at all how any of this works. It seems to be a war of attrition. I agree. And I'm just kind of like sitting off to the side going, none of this is right. But this is how I think it's going to play out. People are having, like parents used to have chicken pox parties. They are. And here's the thing. I think like chicken pox and the flu, everything I'm reading from the CDC, it seems to be indicating that we're stuck in a forever thing now. It just may be something that we have to live with and have to regularly get shots, like getting flu shots. I don't like getting flu shots, but I usually will go get them because I don't like having the flu. And one year I had the flu 3 times, and that made me a believer in the shots. And even if they don't know for sure which flu strains are going to be the ones that will be the ones going on, but they can make an educated guess. So we're circling that drain, and I am upset because I was hoping that, like the flu of 1918, this thing would eventually go away once enough people wore their mask, washed their hands, and stayed away. At the beginning of this thing, I washed my hands so frequently, the skin turned red and started falling off until my doctor said, hey, about that hand washing, that's only important if you go out or you're dealing with other people. But if you're at home and you just pee, don't wash your hands because you're making the skin on your hands go nuts. I'm hoping the Omicron is less serious, and that's the one that sticks around. Sweetie, I'm hoping so too. One thing I do know is when these things go around like this, they do become weaker and weaker and less potent. So I'm hoping that that's what happens as this thing stays around, because I think we're stuck with it for now. We're stuck with it like we're stuck with without a box of Kleenex, apparently. The woman that has the luck of the devil with dealing with social media companies and YouTube. I don't get it. Anybody else would have already been long since thrown off the platform for saying the thing she said. Long since. There's a subvariant that is more transmissible than Omicron. That's not good. Speaking of KJ, did you see Uncivil Law did a quick live where he talked about how Jessa could have an actual case about the interference in her contract, future contracts? Yes, I did see that, Brenda Lee. Uncivil and a couple other legal commentators have done streams saying that Jessa would have one heck of a case for tortious interference. And I think she's going to have to be careful, because that might be the best route for a Duggar to take. She's claiming right now that the Duggars are harassing her. I don't buy it, because during my years of writing about the Duggars, I never had problems with Duggars. It was their stupid minions. Their huggers, I should say. The Duggar huggers. Even though she's co-opted that word now to mean anybody that opposes her is a Duggar hugger. Not so. Yeah, well, I talked about Roadhog at the top of the hour. I'm going to talk about him at the bottom. Or as we started calling him, Wilber. And Charlotte's Web, Wilber the pig. And like I said earlier, there won't be the words some pig, terrific, or humble ever etched over his head. Ever, ever, ever. Someone approached me this morning with a whole pile of information on Wilber and wanted to know if it was a doxing, even though all the information was easily obtainable via the internet. And I had to say, yes, don't dox him. Do not dox him. That if you put that information out, that would consist of a doxing. I gave her some other ideas about how to use that information. I don't know if she will. But you cannot use that kind of identifiable information against people, because you're just feeding the fire. You're just making it all the worse. You could make a case for some pig. One of the things that, and I don't even think it's not people in the Counterballs group, the Java man that's harassing without a crystal ball. It is, I think, people on the edges. They're the ones that have driven the Roadhog drama until recently. They're the ones that have, every time we have had problems, drama, whatever, they've been the ones working as the drivers in the end. And we've had to tell a number of them, we don't go real life. We don't. A lot of them do. They go real life, and the next thing you know, that information gets out there. At least this time somebody approached me and I was able to say, oh, hell no, don't put that out. It's kind of tacky, and you don't want to be doxing somebody. About that, it's in his email address. But the rest of the information, while it's available on websites, it's not for us to use to harass him. Don't harass anybody I've ever talked about. Don't harass KJ. Don't harass him. Don't dox. Don't do anything. These are just my opinions on this. And I do not rubber stamp going real life ever on any of these people. It's just wrong. Never going to see humble associated with him. Most definitely. Never, never, never. I bet I am, because I've been on here 39 minutes, which tells me I need to go. So if you need to hear what I said about Wilber, it's at the top of the hour. He has gotten in some trouble. He lost his Twitter account. They pulled down some of his videos last night, and he's on a 2-week suspension from YouTube. So he's opened up a secondary YouTube account, which is actually against YouTube policy to do that. And he ranted on his wife's YouTube, including doxing, trying to dox Aaron and others. He put out doxing materials, so stay away from him. And if he talks about you, just laugh. He is the biggest example of whiny, weak masculinity, of these guys that think that being masculine is all this horrible stuff when it's not at all. They don't have a clue. They don't have a clue. And it's definitely not boys will be boys. You guys have a great day. I'm going to go. I know this is bad. I just got a connection notice. Love you.